Hey, good day, everybody. It's Rick here. How's everybody doing today? It's Rick here calling from Illinois, Rock Island, Illinois. And I want to talk a little today about my opinion, the difference between the NFL today as it stands now and the NFL of yesteryear, talking about like from the 70s through the 90s, specifically just before the salary cap and free agency, unlimited free agency came in 1993, I believe it was around then. Now I'm 56, be 57 in December. So I've looked at the NFL for many years. I started being a fan around 1973 when I was like 9 years old. I've traveled everywhere. I'm currently in the Army. I've been over 37 years, so I've traveled everywhere, different areas. Come from New England. Now I've lived in the Midwest a lot, different times, and traveled all throughout this country to see different fans and responses to games and things like that. And let me say that I'm not nearly the NFL fan I used to be. I still look at the game. I enjoy the game, like everybody else, but I'm not so into it like I used to be. Here's the reason why. Just my opinion. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong. It's opinion. I do not like the caliber of the NFL nowadays compared to yesteryear for a number of reasons. Now, I know people will say, oh, players are bigger and faster, this and that. Generally speaking, there's great athletes from all eras, but generally speaking, yeah. Okay. Generally speaking, athletically, players have an edge today. That doesn't mean they're better, though. Some of the best players in this league were not the fastest, biggest. Look at Jerry Rice. Okay, he was quick, but he was not the fastest, biggest receiver. And look at best one ever, considered the best receiver ever. Joe Montana, great quarterback. Tom Brady, they're not athletically. There's many better athletic quarterbacks than them. Between those two guys is 11 Super Bowls, right? 7 for Brady and 4 for Montana. Many better athletes than them. So I don't buy the stuff that just because athletes are supposedly more athletic, that means it's so much better of a game and the players are so much better, because a lot of what's in here has been gone, called the heart. And that happened because in 1993, the NFL got stupid and decided we're going to have unlimited free agency and a salary cap, and now it's all about money. What's happened is you've really riddled down defenses. By and large, with few exceptions over the years, the defenses in the last 20 years suck. If you remember football, if you're an old timer like me, you remember football from the 70s and 80s and the great Steelers defense, the 85 Bears, the Giants with Lawrence Taylor, the Cowboys with the Harvey Martin and things like that. If you remember those great complete defenses, this shit that they call defense in the NFL today is just that. Why is that? Well, there's a number of reasons for that. The biggest thing, of course, is two things. The NFL has done everything to make it a fast, arena football style, PlayStation style game, all kinds of scoring. Scoring is much more prevalent in today's game than it used to be. If you look at the box scores, of course, there's 17 games this year. But if you just look at the 16 game, the amount of scoring that's done versus like in the 90s and 80s, it's so much more. And of course, the 70s was much more running. And the reason is because the NFL loves fantasy football, which is based on stats, which is primarily based on offense. 2005, they really changed the rules horribly. That piece of shit from the Colts owner decided that he was going to change it because he didn't like the fact that the Patriots were hitting Peyton Manning's receivers in the playoff game. So he decides he's going to push the league. He had a lot of influence, make it so they can't even fart next to a receiver, which is what you see nowadays. Everything's interference. Receivers are wide open. All the rules have been changed to help the offense. They have not been changed to help the defense. By and large, all the rule changes always seem to help the offense because that's where all the money is put in. That's where most of the salary cap money is put in. And that's what happens. So when you have free agency, when you have a league that's so skewed to one side of the ball, all your money primarily goes to good quarterbacks and maybe a receiver. That's mostly a salary cap. It's not mostly spent in defense. It's mostly spent because you have to. This is a scoring league. This is the fast-paced league. Everybody throws. You can win 4 fucking games and throw for 300 yards a game. quarterbacks. Remember the year that Stafford had Megatron and he had over 2,000 yards receiving? You know what happened? They won 4 games that year, leading the league in offense passing because they couldn't run, they couldn't play defense. That's today's NFL. Everything is about fast action, scoring, everything like that. So because of that, I think this is the reason. When you have free agency and you have unlimited salary cap, you have to spend money on certain people. Back in the day, good teams, the Steelers, all those teams, the Rams, the Vikings, had front fours were fantastic. They were all equally able to rush the passer. Your entire defense was deep, and your subs were not that bad. You didn't lose much when you lost the sub. Nowadays, you cannot have a defense like that. There's impossible for you. Like take the Rams, they have Aaron Donald. Okay, very, very good. Just think of those great teams had 4 like him. Teams today do not have 4 premier pass rushers or down linemen. They can't. They can't afford it. So you get 1. If you're lucky, you get 2, and you build blitz packages and schemes around them, and you have no depth because the guys that come in stink. So if that, look at the Steelers. The T.J. Watt, he's out. Look at how bad it affects the Steelers. They're so thin, the defenses this year nowadays. They don't have the depth because you simply cannot afford to pay to have 4 blue chip linemen or 3 great linebackers. You can't do that. Most of your money is spent on one side of the ball, the offensive side of the ball, and most of it has to be the quarterback. Look at the Cowboys. I've been a long time Cowboys fan. They're not like they used to be, but I mean, they did not want to pay Dak Prescott all that money. They overpaid their running back, who's not the best in the league anymore, but he's making like the most money. So they didn't want to pay Dak. They wanted to keep him, and they wanted to pay him. But he wanted to be the highest paid quarterback, which I don't believe that he was worth. But they wound up having no choice because the alternatives would have been bums for backups. They need to do it. So he had him over a barrel. Now they have 2 guys making so much money in that team more than anybody else. So it's like on an offensive side of the ball. And that's what you do. You have to do that in today's game. And because of that, okay, you have one side that's much more ahead of the other side. Much more ahead of the other side. When you have free agency and you have players changing all the time, a good quarterback, the Aaron Rodgers, the Favres, the Bradys, the Mannings, guys that have come, they're still in the league and some of them are retired. These guys can take lesser receivers, and if the system is good, Patriots are very good about that with Brady. If the system is good, they can make lesser players perform. They take a couple of games, they can get them up to speed. It's not true with the defense. You have a blue chip defensive lineman and he goes out. It's not like you can just plug anybody in there. It doesn't work like that. Same with the linebackers or even a safety or something. When you lose a great defensive player to injury or something or free agency, you lose. Look at Detroit. They've had a lousy defense for years. They had a defense that was not bad in the early part of the last decade. 2014, they were 11-5. The one year they had a defense. They lost a tough playoff game to Dallas. Remember they had Sue and some other players. Well, Sue leaves, and a couple of the other players left in free agency, and the whole defense collapses. They haven't had one since. That's what happens. 1 or 2 players losing to free agency on the defensive side of the ball is much more of an effect than it is on the offensive side of the ball. Because as long as you have a great quarterback, you have a chance. Okay? You have a chance to get these guys to play within your system. Not so much that in the defense is much more predicated to raw talent of a pass rusher or a linebacker. It's not just the system. Your pass rusher is either great or they're not. Okay? That's why I think the NFL lacks. Everything's score. Anybody can score on anybody nowadays. Look at San Francisco's game last night. I knew 37 seconds left. With no timeout, you should be in the driver's seat. Just like I know that Aaron Rodgers is a great quarterback. But he goes down the field like it's nothing. I mean, anybody can do that on any team nowadays. Why do you think the drive in 1981 with Montana to Clark was such an iconic drive? Or it was the catch. The drive was John Elway's 1986 against Cleveland, 98-yard drive. Because it wasn't done that often back then. It was tough. Those defenses were in the playoffs when you met playoff caliber teams. They were rock rib defenses. So they would not let you often make those big drives. Now anybody can do it. The rules are set up that way. Everything's soft. The pass rushes, generally speaking, get tired by the end of the game because there's no depth. Anybody can move on anybody. The amount of time, the guys like Tony Romo, who never won anything, has more fourth quarter comebacks than like Staubach and Aikman, who actually won things. Why? Because they didn't have to do that. They weren't always behind, and it was a different league. It was tougher to do it back then. The defenses then didn't let you do it. If you played the 85 Bears with 37 seconds to go and you had the ball at the 25-yard line, no timeouts, forget it. They would put a pass rush on that would crumple you. Yes, the 49ers played zone, soft zone. No pass rush at all on Rodgers in that last drive. It was just easy pickings down the field. That's today's NFL. Prevent defenses all over the place. Defenses trading points for time, let you get there and get 2-3 touchdowns if you're way ahead. It's a very, very diluted game because of free agency. It's all one side of the ball. Fantasy football makes billions for the NFL. It's a rich, rich scheme. That is based mostly on the NFL does not like 13 to 10 games. They want 45 to 41. That's what they want with 500 yards thrown on one team. That's what they want. You know, if you like that, good for you. I don't. I think it's like inflation. It makes the value of a touchdown not mean anything. When everybody can score 3-4 in the first quarter, and they do, doesn't mean anything. It used to mean something to get a grinding drive and get that winning touchdown drive. Now, when everybody does it, the significance doesn't mean much because defense just, especially this year, there is not one defense that's that great this year. Super Bowl champions defense has stunk for 3 weeks. They're 2-1, but it's not because of them. They barely beat Dallas, and they played terrible defensively. They won last week, but still allowed a lot of points, and they were terrible yesterday against the Rams. 3 weeks, they've allowed over 30 points a game average. Kansas City was been in his last 2 Super Bowls, right? Won one of them. The defense is horrendous the first 3 weeks. They're a blocked punt away from being 0-3. Terrible defense. It's not because of Mahomes they're not winning. They're scoring their points, but they're always behind early in the games because of their defense. This is a Super Bowl team. And there's no defense this year that has been so dominant. Not even the Rams. They had a great first game against the Bears. They struggled, almost lost to Indy, and they allowed Brady to throw for 400 yards, which was Brady's Brady. But even them, they're not that great. There is no defense this year that would strike you as being unable to move against. That's today's NFL. I don't like it. Some people like it. If you do, you like the arena football. It's like the old arena football. Remember, everybody scores back and forth. Remember when that first came out? There was something in Sports Illustrated said, arena football, it's fun, but is it really football? Well, guess what the NFL has turned into? Arena football. You throw the ball everywhere, and sometimes we run when we feel like it. All right, well, that's my talk for today. See if you agree or not. Again, it's all opinion. All right, guys, have a good day.